to convince them to bring back the Iraq War era. They rejected that in 2008. You won off of a platform that said that we should spend money at home and not overseas. You get elected 12 years later off of a platform where you're saying we're going to create an interventionism of foreign policy for the middle class. Meet people where they are. They've clearly rejected you. Before Biden, who was the Senate Foreign Relations Committee who spearheaded the Iraq War resolution at the objection of every single Democrat who was around from the Kennedy era, they were every single president since 2004, when Bush barely won after 9/11, ran on an anti-interventionist platform. Obama ran out of pulling out of wars.
Donald
Obama
Trump
in 2012 ran out of not going to war with Russia.
Donald Trump literally in 2016. Donald Trump in 2016 ran to the left of Hillary Clinton, presenting himself as a peaceful dove to the Hillary Clinton's warmongering ways. This was massively beneficial in making him look like a moderate. Yes.
He was seen as a moderate. He was widely seen as a moderate. And the reason why Democrats came back in 2018, 2020, 2022, winning nearly every single state that matters, often by landslide margins, between 2016 and 2024, Democrats had not lost a meaningful statewide race in Pennsylvania. They had not lost a single statewide race in Michigan. They had not lost practically any meaningful statewide races in Wisconsin besides 2022, when an incumbent, Ron Johnson, barely won against the leftist Mandela Barnes. They won both Senate seats in Georgia. They won the governor's race in North Carolina. They won both Senate seats in Arizona, both Senate seats in Nevada, the governor's race in Arizona. Their mainstream liberalism is a formula that wins when you run somebody who is seen as capable and competent. Americans don't want Trumpism. They rejected Trumpism for nearly a decade straight. But you can't beat Trumpism when you try to force these hated D.C. Washington swamp psychos with -20 favorable and approval ratings down their throats, because it's what you want, because it's what they want. They want this center-right, Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney foreign policy. They want these wars overseas. They want this support for Israel. They want endless war everywhere. They want these endless commitments. They want American hegemony as the sole purpose of the American state. It's an ideology that has been rejected time and time and time again. And they can't get over it. And they're throwing us all off into the abyss because they can't get over it. They need to grow up. They need to be root and stem. That is our project. If she can't pull out a miracle in these 3 Midwestern states off of abortion, if she can't pull a rabbit out of a goddamn hat, our project for the next 4 years is making it clear that the centrists were the ones who failed us. We gave them the ball. We gave them the ball in 2020. They promised they could be electable. They barely beat Trump. They came into office with massive public support after January 6th, and they failed time and time and time again. They ran an 80-year-old man for re-election, a hated 80-year-old man. They credited midterm victory that was so clearly the result of people running away from Biden. Not a single person in the Democratic Party in 2022 ran on the Joe Biden platform. Everybody from Raphael Warnock to Gretchen Whitmer to John Fetterman did not run with Joe Biden. They didn't even say they supported him for re-election, and they won because people saw them as different. And then you run the person who they see as a failure, you're going to fail.
Yeah, there was no constituency, and not only was there never really a constituency, it was like a purely ideological grift from the Democratic Party. One thing that I think is really interesting about this is that they always claim that people like myself, people like yourself, are these like idealistic losers who just want a unicorn, right? Like that's what Hillary Clinton said about Medicare for all. Oh, what's next? You want a unicorn? And it's like the things that we are advocating for are not only morally correct, but they're also massively beneficial in terms of the race, in terms of winning races. Even if you are not genuinely interested in pushing the needle towards like a more just society, towards expansion of Medicare in a very significant way, not like at-home care or whatever the focus tested that Kamala Harris was pushing for,
like focus grouped shitty fucking things.
Even if that wasn't the case, like even if you weren't going to do that, like you couldn't even lie about it, which blows my goddamn mind. Like at least lie about it. And the fact that they chose not to even do that, the fact that they chose not to even dignify the base of support with lies to get them excited at the prospect, like Barack Obama did in 2000 2008 is genuinely shocking. We are not the idealists here.
We are
centrists. Yes, we are
They
pragmatic.
are the fucking
centrists
idealists. They are the ideologues. They are the people doing what they accuse the left of, where they prioritize their bullshit ideological crusades over pragmatic winning and stopping fascism. These people prioritized their stupid neocon bullshit over actually doing what needed to be done.
Yeah,
they
also,
prioritized it at every turn.
We also have some more damning news from David Day, and House is starting to slip away from the Dems. This result in what was considered a safe seat in Illinois is the big shocker so far, with Joshua Lloyd with 72% of the votes in. The Republican candidate is clobbering Nikki Budzinski.
Yeah, even the hope that existed under Biden that there would be some degree of separation between a generic liberal, someone like Bob Casey or Tammy Baldwin or any of these House members who won in 2022, they would be like separated from the Biden administration, something that made sense in theory, did not work in this high turnout electorate. When you have these low information voters, these low engagement voters, the kinds of voters who only show up every 4 years for presidential races and don't show up in special elections and runoffs and all these other races, when you have these voters showing up here, they just see the Democrat on the ticket as one and the same with this administration that they despise.
Yeah, but listen, you want to know what the silver lining in all of this is? Kamala Harris wanted to appoint a Republican to her cabinet, and honestly, now it's going to be all Republicans, and it seems like Democrats love that shit. So
yeah,
that's
they'll
good.
be fine. You're happy. You wanted Liz Cheney running the CIA. You're going to get more than enough of that.
Yeah.
The thing is with this, after 2016 was a legitimate upset. 2016 was something that was truly surprising. We didn't see it coming. Clinton was a very popular politician at some points in her career. She had the backing of this political machine that had won countless times. Trump was this person with minus 40% personal favorables. He was rejected by his party. Less than a month before the election, you had all these establishment figures who were telling him to drop out of the race. It was a legitimate question as to why he won. There were legitimate things Democrats needed to do. There wasn't a clear path forward because the party had been losing under Obama since 2010. They got blown out in 2010. They got blown out in 2014. They got killed in all these races leading up to 2016. What we have now, we have a party that is
Budzinski is up, by the way. Sorry to cut you off, but that was error in reporting, data entry error. Budzinski is actually up.
Yeah, but the thing is, the difference between this and 2016 is that, after 2016, reasonable people could disagree on what the proper path forward is. Centrists had a legitimate case that they had a perfectly viable, even the most viable ideology electorally, and that they had just been they just happened to run this person who was corrupt and personally unpopular, and it fucked them. They run Biden.
It doesn't make any sense. Biden, Kamala Harris would not be running for, Kamala Harris would not be the presidential candidate right now if Joseph Robinette Brandon was not so unimaginably unpopular that he had to do the unceremonious, unique thing of dropping the fuck out. Why the fuck would you spend any of your truncated campaign running towards the fucking unpopular person? Why would you keep that unpopular person's own? Why would you keep his campaign? Why would you keep his campaign? Why would you run towards him? Why would you consistently say you are going to be just like him, but they
sacrificed our future on the altar of their fucking petulant, childish fetish towards Joe Biden. They sacrificed a clear path towards winning that we've seen be successful time and time and time again because they didn't want to admit that they did something wrong, even when the signs were clear every single step of the way. They were children. They were childish. They chose their feelings over what could have been done to easily be successful. People don't like Donald Trump. They've never liked Donald Trump. There's not been a single moment of this man's career that he has ever had personal positive favorability. That has never been the case for any national politician of his length of his career before. But he's probably going to be a two-term president because they insist on their fucking ideological centrist bullshit.
There's still people in the chat going, bro, shut the Joe beat Trump when no one else could in 2020. 42,000 votes, by the way.
4.5 during COVID.
42,000 votes over Donald Trump, who got COVID literally a week before, like the Comey letter. When COVID was like the top of mind, number one priority, Donald Trump literally got COVID right before the fucking election. Like,
He beat him by 40,000 votes.
he beat him by 42,000 votes. Get the
during
fuck
a
outta here.
generational public health crisis.